Lord of Mysteries 2, Circle-of-Inevitability. Chapter 108, Report. Several days later, an investigation report on Corda Village was submitted to Intis Intelligence and Homeland Security Committee's Bureau 8, the machinery hive mind of the Church of the God of Steam and Machinery, and the Eternal Blazing Sun Church's Inquisition. Upon receipt, the brass immediately reviewed the report. Background: over the past year, numerous disappearances have occurred in the Fenapotter Kingdom's Grabaka province, near the Daryaji region, and in the Lemberg Republic's Upper Hell State. Several Beyonders without official permission have mysteriously vanished, and these incidents seem to be connected to shepherds traveling across the three regions. Among them, those from Corda Village became our primary focus. Consequently, after receiving an unusual distress letter, we prioritized the mobilization of elite personnel and dispatched them as a joint investigation team. The investigators' complete written statements are as follows. The anomaly in Corda Village can be categorized into two levels: reality and dreamscape. Reality. Corda was ultimately destroyed by a large-scale but unsuccessful evil god sacrificial ritual. Only a small number of villagers survived. Most villagers were utilized as nutrients for the failed creation of an evil god. The remaining individuals were reassembled in peculiar ways and transformed into various monsters. The evil god's sacrificial ritual altered the landscape. The river dried up and changed course. The village square and cathedral were elevated nearly 40 meters by a small-scale orogeny, forming a blood-colored pillar. The failed evil god creation was located atop the pillar. However, when we discovered it, it had already been destroyed, potentially by self-destruction or interference from other factions. Corda's houses also underwent reassembly. Some formed a twisted, thorny city wall around the blood-colored pillar, while others were arranged in circular patterns. In these severely damaged buildings, we found only a few coins and the most common lever blue. We did not find any written information or anything that could clearly identify Corda. The reason remains unknown. Only the House of Lumion Li, the target, contained books, newspapers, magazines, and other items that clearly identified it. Within the ruins of Cordu, there are two abnormal areas surrounding the blood-colored pillar. One can induce a deep slumber, leading to a dreamscape, while the other is teeming with life, filled with flowers and trees, and features a self-rocking crib. Our assumption regarding the latter area is that it is closely related to Madame Pualis of Cordu. For a detailed explanation, refer to the Dreamscape section. At the other edge of the blood-colored pillar, we unearthed 4 relatively well-preserved corpses. The location likely corresponds to the original cathedral cemetery. The first corpse was a woman, no more than 20 years old, who had been strangled to death. The second corpse was a young man, also no more than 20 years old, who had drowned. The third corpse was surrounded by coffin fragments. Female, over 60 years old, and died of mechanical asphyxiation. Based on other evidence, we speculate that she was suffocated with a pillow. The fourth corpse was male and had not decomposed. His tongue had been severed while he was alive, and there were visible ligature marks on his neck. Relevant speculations about the aforementioned corpses can be found in the Dreamscape section. Upon entering the ruins of Cordu, we were likely affected by the power emanating from Lumion Li's body. Our memories of the date became disordered, and the thought of leaving ceased to occur to us. One by one, we fell asleep. While in the dream state, our bodies maintained a weak level of activity, eliminating the need for food replenishment for several days. Had we remained in this state for another half a month, it is uncertain whether we would have awoken from hunger or perished within the dream. The entire ruin is locked in a loop capable of reverting to its original state at any moment. The trigger point is most likely tied to Lumion Li's self-awareness and the restrictions he imposes. The former refers to the inevitable restart if Lumion Li's subconscious anticipates it, while the latter stems from his desire to prevent anyone from disrupting Cordu's current state and the development of the dream. Any relevant event would immediately trigger a restart. We inquired with villagers from surrounding areas, but they reported no abnormalities concerning Cordu. Through their responses and previously gathered information, we confirmed 3 points. First, there was never a legend of a deceased warlock in Cordu. This refers to a story told by Lumian Li in the Dreamscape. Once, a warlock lived in Cordu. After his death, an owl perched on his bed head for a time before flying away. The warlock's corpse grew heavy, requiring 9 bulls to transport it. Second, no elves suspected of being in the form of lizards have appeared in the Daryaji area. Third, Lent is traditional folklore, and had no issues originally. Dreamscape. The dreamscape originated from Lumian Li and is so realistic that we couldn't discern that we were dreaming. We consulted psychologists and dream experts, and synthesized their opinions to form a hypothesis about this dream. It is an amalgamation of Lumian Li's personal experiences, all the novels he has read, and his assumptions and conjectures based on previous events. The dream exhibits obvious coincidences and characteristics of wish fulfillment at certain critical junctures. Within this dreamscape, not all the situations we encountered were real, nor were they entirely fabricated. Disorganized facts, the minutiae of daily interactions, and the illusory scenes that left a profound impact on Lumian Li were reassembled in a chaotic and symbolic manner, presenting themselves to us. This is both a characteristic of the dreamscape and a manifestation of Lumian Li's subconscious avoidance or fear of certain issues. Moving forward, we will provide a detailed account of every aspect of our experience. We ought to have realized that we were in a dream earlier on. The most evident clue was that we did not recall needing to change our clothes until Lumian Li reminded us that our garments were severely damaged. Though this is quite unusual, humans tend not to think critically within dreams. It has been confirmed that we did not send telegrams. The corresponding responses may have originated from Lumian Li's subconscious and the knowledge he possesses. By combining the events in the dream with the situation in reality, we have arrived at the following conjectures. Our consciousness and knowledge, to some extent, enrich the dream, and we may have inadvertently exposed some of our secrets to Lumian Li. There are at least 2 distinct evil god faiths in Cordu. One represents a power akin to Earth Mother's, embodied by Administrator Beast's wife, Madame Pualis. The other is the one followed by Guillaume Benet, the former padre, and the majority of the villagers. The latter faith ultimately led to Cordu's destruction. During the Lent celebration, the spring elf's beheading and send-off symbolized driving the force representing Madame Pualis out of Cordu. There may have been a violent conflict between the 2 factions. Simultaneously, the decapitation of Ava Lizier, the personification of the spring elf, symbolized that this girl had discovered something amiss in reality. When she attempted to escape or inform others, she was clandestinely strangled to death by Guillaume Benet's group. Raymond Gregg was thrown into the river. The appearance of his spirit body beneath the cathedral symbolizes that, like Ava, he was deemed a snitch and subsequently drowned. Jean Maury discovered that his wife, Sybil, had an affair with the former padre. In a fit of rage, he became mute. This symbolized that as a devout follower of the eternal blazing sun, his tongue was cut off when he tried to inform others about the village's abnormalities. His subsequent disappearance implied that he had been murdered. Naroka's death shares the same potent symbolism as Ava, Raymond, and Jean. First, she must have covertly followed Madame Pualis, intending to allow her deceased husband's spirit to return home through the aid of the soul messenger. Thus, her post-death behavior was to enter Permitha. Second, it is highly likely that she was killed by her youngest son, Arnaud André, likely because she had discovered the issue with Guillaume Benet's group and wanted to inform Madame Pualis. Based on our search of the ruins, the Lent celebration, and Madame Pualis's claim that she could depart at a specific moment, it is implied that she, her husband Bias, butler Louis Lund, and lady's maid Kathy left Cordu before the ritual on the 12th night. They remain alive, and their whereabouts are unknown. This is reflected in the dream by the lady's refusal to assist at critical moments. However, considering the circumstances in the peculiar area teeming with vitality, we suspect that Madame Pualis left something behind before her departure and indirectly participated in the ritual on the 12th night. The black-robed man in the warlock's tomb likely symbolizes Lumian Li's mutated persona due to his corruption. However, for some reason, Lumian Li did not appear to be deeply corrupted, enabling him to easily triumph during the skirmish, given his increased courage. The bizarre lizard-like creature found in the mouths of Aurora Lee, Michel Garriga, and others might symbolize their corruption and mutation, eventually transforming them into an alternate version of themselves. Questions. 1. How is Lumian Lee aware of the abilities of Guillaume Binet, Pierre Barry, and others? If he had secretly observed them in reality, it would be understandable if he remained undetected once or twice. There must be an inherent reason why he could obtain so much information without facing consequences. 2. Why did the villagers and Aurora Lee behave indistinguishably from real people, making it challenging for us to recognize that we were in a dream until Lumian Lee believed that something abnormal should have occurred to them? 3. What does Prometheus symbolize? 4. What do Madame Pualis's numerous children in the castle and the crib with an invisible object represent? 5. Why did Lumian Lee use lizard-like elves to portray the villagers' corruption? 6. What do Lumian Lee and Aurora Lee's attempts to escape Cordu and enter Prometheus signify? 7. Why did the ritual on the 12th night fail? 8. How can Lumian Lee enable us to enter his dream? He evidently lacks the ability to do so. 9. Why did he suddenly acquire normal beyonder powers? 10. How did he survive and cause the ruins of Cordu to enter a loop? 11. Aurora Lee's abnormalities occurred at entirely different times during the two cycles. What does this indicate? 12. What does the legend of the deceased warlock symbolize? 13. What does the warlock's corpse in the coffin in the underground tomb represent? 14. What does the owl symbolize? 15. What does the change in the horoscopes signify? 16. What is the origin of the matter? Conclusions and recommendations. This is a quintessential disaster resulting from the worship of an evil god. Currently, 6 known survivors exist. Lumian Lee, former Padre Guillaume Binet, Pualis de Roquefort, Beist, Louis Lund, and Cathy. The latter 5 are adherents of evil gods. We must locate and eliminate them as soon as possible. Directly killing Lumian Lee is not advised. Until his issues are understood and resolved, his death might trigger an even more severe anomaly. The optimal solution is to capture and securely contain him. Reporters: Ryan Visha of Machinery Hive Mind, Major Leah Bellet of Bureau 8, and Purifier Valentine de la Court of the Inquisition.